Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some massive late night news for the Oregon Duck fans as four-star cornerback Dakoda Fields flips his commitment from the USC Trojans and commits to Dan Lanning in the Oregon Ducks. Now, before we dive into the film in Dakoda Fields and talk more about what this class is looking like for the Oregon Ducks, just want to say thank you to you guys. 10 o'clock Eastern time. Any chance I get to talk about this Oregon Ducks team, where this program is going under Dan Lanning, I certainly am going to take it. So appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. The Oregon Duck fans throughout the offseason, talking the recruiting cycle, have been absolutely awesome. So appreciate y'all. If you do enjoy the updates, you enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And let's get into Dakoda Fields. And if you guys have listened to me talk about cornerbacks coming from the high school ranks and making that transition to the college football world, there's two things I really look for, right? Length, and do you have that long speed? Dakoda Fields checks both those boxes. 6'2", 185 pounds, really long arms, and more importantly, he uses that length in big-time ways, right? At the line of scrimmage, jamming wide receivers, I think that's where he's best. But when it comes to making a play on the football, using that bigger frame, Dakoda Fields certainly does that. He also has a track background, so running with some speedier wide receivers, you don't really have many concerns. And one of the more polished cornerbacks in this class, you see the national ranking, right? Top 100 dude according to the composite, a top 10 cornerback in this 2024 cycle. Now, two things. One, we're going to get more into this Oregon class, but you take a look at the secondary group, maybe a little bit of a sore spot when Dan Lanning took over. He goes to the transfer portal and addresses it. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a sore spot any longer because you take a look at the secondary commits they have in this 2024 group. A lot to be excited about, especially with Dakoda Fields. Diving into the film, a couple of things that are going to stand out. One, how well he can run with receivers vertically down the field. Giving up the big play was a little bit of a problem for Oregon. You see in single coverage, no safety over the top, can run with any wide receiver and make a play at the catch point. Those are two things that you really look for. And when it comes to being physical, tackling on the perimeter, another thing that is massively overlooked for cornerbacks coming to the college football level, Dakoda Fields certainly has that. You see here on an inside move, just using that length to be disruptive in those throwing windows. He certainly has that, breaking on the football in a meaningful way. What you want to see a little bit more is he's a guy that, he played an abbreviated season as a junior because of injury. You'd like to see the ball skills a little bit more, but that's something I think he can develop once he gets to Oregon. Dan Lanning, obviously a phenomenal developer of player talent. Now, another thing you like to see working in on special teams, especially when you're a younger guy coming into a program like Oregon, where you might not always see the field right away. If you can contribute on special teams, that's a good way to get on the football field. Dakoda Fields busting his butt over as a gunner, making a play in space, really good tackler in space, which, again, an overlooked trait that I really like. This right here, this is where I'm most excited for Dakoda Fields, right? When he's on the line of scrimmage, man coverage, jamming a receiver, using that length and that frame that he has to his best ability. This is where I like him the most, right? Squeezing the defender, breaking on the football. That's where I think Dakoda Fields is kind of the most successful. And you're going to see, again, squeezing him right out, making throws hard. It never seems easy for quarterbacks and wide receivers to find that connection with Dakoda Fields. Again, using that frame, really comfortable when that football's in the air, being disruptive, breaking up passes. Dakoda Fields, a really, really nice get for the Oregon Ducks. And again, it always helps when it's flipped from the USC Trojans. Now, getting into this 2024 class, and for Oregon fans who've been listening all summer, this has been a group that's just quietly kind of chugged along. Top 15 class. I think it should be close to a top 10 class, adding Dakoda Fields. You look at this, especially in the secondary group. This is what I want to talk about the most. Aaron Flowers, another win over USC on the recruiting trail for a safety from Texas that I think is my favorite commit in this class in terms of how he fits what Dan Lanning wants to do on the defensive side of the ball. Ife Obidewu coming over from St. Francis Academy, making that trip across the country. Ife and Dakoda Fields are two really talented cornerbacks that, again, getting back to what I love most in cornerbacks, length and speed, certainly have that. You have a secondary room that if you had concerns about it, I don't think you have too many concerns about the future of this secondary group with Ife, Aaron Flowers, and Dakoda Fields locked up. And as you continue to look at this class, I think the depth is really there, right? 21 commits, a lot of blue chips, a lot of guys in the top 300 national rankings, and guys that they're still trending for some top targets as well. There's been some misses, right? Justin Williams, the 5-star linebacker from Texas, obviously goes to Georgia. Nate Frazier also goes to Georgia. That being said, one, you're seeing a lot of flip commitments. I think if Oregon can put some successful football on the field in 2023, when it gets to December, when it matters, when these guys are committed and ready to sign, I wouldn't be. I mean, you just see we're talking about a flip commitment right now. But more importantly, what they have right now is just a lot of depth, right? A lot of guys in the top 200, especially on that defensive side of the ball. I really like the two quarterbacks they took, and Michael Van Buren and Luke Moga. And then a couple guys that just keep your eye on, right? Aiden Breland, the 5-star from Mater Dei. He's a dude that it sounds like it might come down to Georgia and Oregon again. And Oregon's finding themselves in a lot of recruiting battles with the Georgia Bulldogs. And Oregon might start winning some. That's, I mean, not a bad problem to have. When you're competing with the likes of Georgia on the recruiting trail, you know you're doing something right on the recruiting trail. And you're not going to win every single one of those recruitments. That being said, two things to close on. One, Dan Lanning bringing that recruiting that he was so successful with at Georgia to Oregon. But more importantly, you got to trust Dan Lanning in the player development, right? That's something we've talked about. Mario Cristobal was a phenomenal recruiter. When it came to player development, in-game coaching, in my opinion, and I think from Oregon fans that I've talked to, left a little bit to be desired. For Dan Lanning, and you see the track record of player development and in-game coaching. I mean, they won a lot of games last year. That was a very good Oregon team. I think you're a little bit more optimistic that the recruiting doesn't seem like it's going to fall off. I think Dan Lanning has a lot to sell in Oregon, competing for national titles, moving to the Big Ten, player development. And then you couple that with how good Dan Lanning has been with player development and putting guys in the best positions to succeed for Oregon. Like, and we've said this a lot. You have to be extremely excited about where this program is going. And again, a lot of changing parts, moving conferences. I think they have the right man for the job. Was one of the best hires during that offseason in terms of head coaches. The Oregon Ducks, a program trending in the right direction in a meaningful way. And again, Mario Cristobal leaving. I think I'm not ragging on Mario Cristobal, but maybe a blessing because I think they found a gem in Dan Lanning. Again, appreciate the Ducks fans tuning in late night, but again, I'm not going to miss an opportunity to talk some Oregon football. Appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to you guys later.